Hey everyone, welcome to Meeple Bits. Thanks for joining me today. In today's how-to, we're going to dive into the hand management, set collection, city builder style game, Villages of Valeria. Originally printed in 2017 by, designed by Rick Holtzgraft and Elijah Vallejo, published by Daily Magic Games, with a playtime of about 45 minutes for 1 to 5 players. Yeah, a solo mode is available. So joining me as we go through this setup and how-to, and we're also going to take one or two turns for Villages of Valeria. So stay tuned. So let's take a quick look at the components that are going to come out during the course of play. We have castle cards in each of the 5-player colors, adventurer cards, building cards, the active selection board or card, depending on if you have the standard or Kickstarter version, player castles, the active player castle, and gold coins. Let's take a closer look at the two types of cards that are going to come out, the building cards and the adventurer cards. Let's look at the iconography really quickly. In the upper left of the building cards, you'll notice a type, as well as on the adventurer cards. These are worker, shadow, soldier, holy. On the cards will indicate additional resources. Red is food, brown is wood, gray is stone, blue is magic. And on your castle card and others, you'll notice a wild. Looking even closer at each of these cards, in the upper left of the building are its type, its building type, the building cost, the resources, the building name, any special powers, and its victory points. On the adventurer cards, you got the adventurer icon, victory points, any special powers, the building types needed to recruit this, and the adventurer name. Welcome to a 3-player setup of the game Villages of Valeria. To begin, have each player select a castle of their color choice, give them that castle card, and that castle token. Additionally, give each player a player aid card. It's dual-sided, and it'll give you a list of the actions, as well as the icons. Next, choose the starting player in any manner you choose. My group, we like to use Schwazi. But here, I'll be first player. Give the first player the action token and the active player token. So this could be a card or a tile, depending on your version. Next, the number of gold, or the amount of gold, depends on the number of players. In a 3-player game, we're going to use 20 gold max, returning all remaining gold to the box. Then, hand each player 3 gold from that supply. There will only be, in a 3-player game, 20 gold. In a 2-player, 14, in a 4-player, 25, and in a 5-player, you'll use all 30 gold. Next, separate the 2 decks into adventurers and buildings. Deal each player 6 building cards from the building deck. Then, create a pool of adventurers by selecting 5 cards face up in a row and 5 buildings face up in a row. These 6 cards that have been dealt, they're the player's opening hand, so you'll want to keep these face down in secret from other players. Lastly, and in this setup phase only, each player is going to choose 1 card from their opening hand, so I'll just randomly take this one, to build at no cost. And only in this opening round can this be done at no cost. So take your card that you've selected and slide it under your castle for your resources. So all players should start with a combined wild resource and 1 additional resource. And setup is complete, and you're ready to begin. Before going through the main actions of the game, let's take a quick look at two core concepts regarding these buildings, with the adventurers and the buildings. In the buildings, this bottom section is the resources. So whenever you're building or harvesting for resources, you're going to slide it under your castle card, and this is going to be a running resource pool. When building a building, you're going to place it to the right of your castle, thus building your tableau. Ideally, you're going to want to group these buildings together in their similar icons for easy scoring. Additionally, you may not have any two buildings of the same name in your tableau. So if I were to build a headquarters, as shown here, I could not build another headquarter at all. The adventurer cards are similar to the building cards, though they do not have a resource section at the bottom. So you're ready to begin play. The game is going to be played over a number of rounds until, depending on the player count, a total number of buildings and adventurer cards have been added into your tableau. In this 3-player game, it's going to be a total of 12, the same as in a 2-player game. In a 4 or 5-player game, the total is 10. So on your turn, there are 2 steps to the player's turn. 1, you're going to replenish. To replenish, if there's any gold placed on any of your resources, you're going to remove and collect that gold, putting it into your hand. This is your gold to keep. And step 2 is to take one of these 5 actions: harvest, develop, build, recruit, and tax. And all players, as you'll notice, may then follow that same action, so long as they're able to pay its cost. So there are 2 steps to the game: your lead and then your follow. Lead is the player whose turn it is, who is taking the primary action, and all players may follow that. And again, the play will continue, each player taking turns until, in this 3-player game, 12 total buildings have been built. So the game will end after that condition has been met. So if on my turn here, I've built my 12th building, then the game will end after my turn. So let's take a quick look at what those 5 actions look like during the course of play. So on your turn, again, you're going to start in 2 steps. Step 1 being replenish. So if there's any gold on any of your resource cards, you're going to take that gold into your pile. If there is no more gold left in the bank, then no gold may be acquired throughout the game. So gold is going to be distributed, across the different players' areas, and it's going to constantly be changing hands. Then, once you've replenished, you're going to take one action. So let's start with that harvest action. So player 1 decides to take that harvest action, and the harvest action indicates that you're going to draw 3 cards. Let's see if I can get this in view. There we go. Draw 3 cards. So what you're going to do is, when drawing cards, you may draw from any of these draw piles or from the random cards in this deck. You're going to draw cards one at a time, and if ever any of these piles become emptied, then you're going to replenish it before continuing. So here on my turn, I'm going to, as I mentioned, do that harvest action, draw up 3 cards. So I'm going to, let's draw one random card into our hand, the encampment. We're going to then draw up this wood mill, the fountain, and this cloister. Oh, no, that's already 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then we've replenished, we probably should have replenished that first. So then we'll make sure that these always get replenished. Then all subsequent players, once I've completed my primary action, then player 2 in turn order, they may follow by drawing up 1 card. So yellow player here then has the option to draw any face-up pile or randomly from here. So let's say everyone does want to take that follow action, and one by one they're going to draw up cards into their hand. Complete. The harvest action has been done. So instead, let's say that player 1 wanted to do the develop action instead. On the develop action, you're going to discard 1 card to add a card to your castle as a resource. So whenever you're building or doing any of these actions, you're always doing so out of your hand. So In this case, when discarding cards, you're going to discard into any of the available piles. So example, let's say I wanted to discard this this hideout here, for example. No, I'll keep that one. Let's say we discarded the market. I could discard the market into any pile here. So discard one card to add a card to your castle as a resource. So let's say then I wanted to add in this headquarters as a resource. I'm going to go ahead and put it into my tableau like so. And now I've got an additional resource available for use. Any player then may follow, so they would then discard 2 cards to add a resource into their castle. So starting with then the next player, they would say discard 2 cards, again following the same rules, placing them face up into any pile they choose, to then decide that they wanted to build a resource. So then they would take that and put it underneath their castle, like so. And then the next player would be able to follow and do the same thing, so long as they can pay its cost. So let's say the player wanted to instead take the build action. The build action is you're going to provide resources to add a building into your village. So in doing that, what we're going to do is we've got our set of cards here. Okay. And again, I can only do from my hand. So if I had no cards, well, I'd have to harvest cards to get them into my hand. But in order to do resources, how we're going to handle resource gathering is you're going to place a gold coin over any resource that you're looking to use to then build anything from your hand. And their cost is here on the left side. So I would need to pay, for example, for this hideout, I would need to pay 1 wood. Now, I don't have any wood in my village, but as long as there's available resources from any players, so for example, I could take 1 gold from myself here and put it onto red player's wood like so. Then I can use their wood resource to build my hideout. And then all players can then follow that action. When following, on the build, I would then draw up 1 card. So I would decide a face-up card or draw from the pile, which I'll do over here. So once you've then done that, then in turn order, each player may follow that. So they can do the same, pay the cost of a resource to build something from their hand. The only resource that a player cannot take, though, is going to be the wild resource from the castle. You can only take built resources above the castle. So I could never cover up a player's gold, or I could never cover up a player's, another player's wild card and use it like that. You can only ever use that from your own village. So each player would check and see if they wanted to pay the resources to do a building. So now it's time to recruit. So let's say the player wanted to handle the recruit action. They would put themselves in here just to keep track of what the active action is. And then they would be able to recruit an adventurer up here by paying 1 gold from their own supply and then selecting an adventurer to bring into their village. Keeping in mind that adventurers do have a cost associated in what buildings are required in order to recruit them. Adventurers may only be had in this way. So example, let's say I wanted to recruit the alchemist. I would pay 1 gold to the bank or to the supply, and then I would be able to recruit him into my village. However, right now he requires a worker building and a shadow building. And currently I only have a shadow building. So I would need to acquire, say, a mine into my tableau in order to be able to recruit this one. And that goes for everyone who wanted to follow, whereas anyone that wanted to follow the action would pay 2 gold to the supply to be able to recruit any available adventurers into their village. So on this turn, I wouldn't have the necessary buildings to recruit anyone that is available, so I wouldn't be able to handle that action. But you guys get the idea of what the recruit looks like. You must be able to meet its requirement for the building types in order to bring them into your village. And lastly, action of tax. So let's say the active player wanted to do the tax action, where you would collect 1 gold and draw 1 card. So I would take 1 gold, if available from the supply, bringing it into my personal supply. Well, that one fell off the table. And draw 1 card. Again, any available card can be done. I want to probably build this mine in the near future because I do want to get that alchemist as a recruitment. So I'll bring him over into my hand, checking my cards to make sure that I don't have more than 8, because if I did, then I would need to discard back down. Any player that may follow that action would be able to draw 1 card into their hand. Again, so long as they were under the cap of 8. Some cards, both buildings and adventurers, are going to have special abilities. Those special ability comes in 2 flavors. The instant kind, with a lightning bolt, or associated to an action. These may be activated whenever that action is taken as the primary or as the follow. But they are optional, so it's not a requirement to use them at all. But example, once you've built this market, this becomes an instant action where you would acquire 2 gold from the supply. If you wanted to use this cloister's special ability, whenever the develop action is either the primary or you're following it, then you can then add 1 additional gold. So the develop action is discard 1 card and add a card to your castle as a resource. So here you can do it and then add 1 gold into your supply. For the headquarters, during the build action, again either the lead or the follow, you can discard 2 cards to collect 1 gold. The barracks, during the develop action, you can gain 1 additional card. So again, these are optional, but can be used either instantly or associated to the action. And that's it. Play will continue until you've accomplished the number of buildings to end the game. Once the end is complete, then you're going to tally up all your victory points, and the player with the most victory points is declared the winner. In case of a tie, the tiebreaker conditions are: first, the player who had built the most buildings; secondly, the player with the most gold in their supply at the end of the game; and lastly, the player, if there's still a tie, the player with the most developed resources in their castle is the winner. If still a tie, all tied players win. So that's it. That's Villages of Valeria in a quick sort of setup and how-to. Let's go ahead and take a couple of turns just so that we can get a general sense of gameplay as well as potential strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this back to the starting conditions and then take probably just 1 turn apiece. Okay, so we're back to the initial setup. We've got our 5 draw piles, each with 1 card in them. Everyone's back to their 1 starting resource, which was built from their starting 6 cards, which means each player only has 5 cards remaining in their hand. All players have their 3 gold. So I'll be the starting player, and then I'll take everyone else's turn. So here, coming out of the gate, I'm not too sure exactly how I want to do my lead strategy. This is always kind of up in the air because you never know which direction you want to take just yet, because it is kind of determined on sort of the cards and the resources that you're going to be able to acquire during the course of play. But you know what? I feel like I want to go ahead and get some buildings out there. Now, it's going to cost me to do it, but I really want to get that recruitment happening as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do, as my lead action, the build action. So I'll place my token into the build slot, and then I want to build this encampment. So to build, I need to provide the resources to add a building to my village. So this is going to cost me 2 food. Well, as you guys know, I don't have any food, so I'm going to need to use my neighbors. So I'm going to go ahead and cover up this food and pay 1 gold to cover up my wild, like so. So now I've got my 2 food requirement met in order to build this encampment. It does have an instant ability, which is to draw 1 card. So encampment, instant ability, draw 1 card. So I do want to go ahead and take advantage of that. I'll bring 1 card into my hand. And additionally, the build action, after building, I can then draw one additional card. So I want to probably, let's see, I already have a hideout, but having another one to discard later for something might help me out. But I think I might want to take this Oracle into my hand. So I'll go ahead and draw that up as my develop actions card. And then this must get replenished. Now, starting with the next player, they can choose to follow the build action, providing any resources to build anything in their hand. So let's take a quick look at what they have to see if they've got the ability to do so. Well, right away, everything they have costs at least 3 resources. And the most resources currently available for them would be 3, so 1 wild, a wood, and a magic. So that doesn't really get them exactly where they need to be, though. So they wouldn't be able to follow that action. So then, red player, let's see what they've got. Similar setup, but they could potentially follow this one, but the food's already taken, so they wouldn't be able to do that. So the wood and magic, they could follow and build a forager's den by paying their 1 wild for the food, their own wood, and then taking purple player's magic icon. So that is a possibility, but I feel like they want to probably sit on their money for right now. So that'll be the end of player 1's turn. They begin by passing the player marker to the right, the turn action also to the next player, like so, and then it's the next player's turn. So for them, again, step 1 is to replenish. They're going to remove all gold from their card. This player, purple, will not remove this gold until their turn comes around again. So they've been replenished, and now they're ready to take their next action. And given that they're sitting on 4 gold, I feel like maybe on this opening turn, they might want to try to get themselves a little bit richer for right now. So they're going to do the tax action. The tax action allows them to collect 1 gold from the supply. So now they've got 5 of the total pool available, and to draw up 1 card. So looking at their cards, let's see. They don't have anything low cost, so I feel like they may want this hideout or the shrine. Both are relatively low cost. Let's go with the hideout. So they're going to pull the hideout up into their hand. So that's collect 1 gold and draw 1 card. Now this must be replaced. Then the follow can happen. So starting with the next player, red, they can choose to follow, and well, no reason not to collect a card as long as they're not above the hand limit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So them collecting a card would definitely be in their interest. Again, they probably want some low cost items. So I think let's go with a blind draw. Oh, an expensive one. Bummer. And that's their turn. So they would then pass, keep their castle, pass this down the line, and now it's red player's turn. Red player has nothing to replenish, so they have no gold to remove, and then they would take their action. So let's say they want to go ahead and stock up on some additional resources. What they would do is they would do the develop action. So the develop action, they're going to discard 1 card from their hand. It's going to take a while to get to this market. So let's go ahead and discard the market, covering up, let's cover up this cheap one here, this holy shrine. So discard 1 card to then build a resource. I feel like they could definitely use some a food icon. So let's go ahead and build this wizard's tower into the resource for red. There we go. And then starting with purple player, they may follow that develop action by discarding 2 cards to build a resource. Now purple player is a little flush with cards because if you remember on their turn, they were able to get 2 cards on this build. And they were able to get another one from the tax. So I think discarding 2 cards to develop a resource would be really valuable for this player, especially because they don't have themselves any food or wood, but or stone. Let's get some stone in here. So we're gonna go ahead and build this laborium. sliding it under like so, and then discarding 2 cards. This one's super expensive, and the Oracle is also pretty darn expensive. So let's go ahead and discard both of these into any pile you choose. Let's just put them both in one pile like that. And then the yellow player may do the same. So they'll probably want to get some resources as well. They want to get some wood, or sorry, resources are down here. They want to get some wood, so they would build this into their tableau, into their village. I say build, but I mean develop. There we go. And then discard 2 cards, like so. And then that ends red player's turn. And then it would get passed back to purple player. And play would continue until, again, the building conditions have been completely met. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this one. I'm going to go ahead and tear down the table. And stay tuned as I bring you my afterthoughts. Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that setup and how-to for the game Villages of Valeria. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into my afterthoughts. Listen, it's a card game, so the components are exactly what you would expect, which are some well-designed cards. On that note though, when your core is cards, and that is the entire mechanic of your play, I would expect a little better iconography. It's probably actually one of my only negatives about the game is that a couple of the icons I think could have been a little better thought out. Namely, as it comes to the action of discarding a card. So, for example, when you're taking, say, the develop action and you're activating one of the special powers on one of your buildings or something like that, it's got, say, 2 green icons, right? So 2 green cards with an arrow that gives like a gold icon. So they needed to maybe change that because that same green card is also used, in conjunction with a plus sign for adding a card. So this very small variant of just the plus sign with the green card means to add, and then without the plus sign it means to discard. I feel like if they would have maybe did a strike through the green card, it would have better signified a discard action. So that's probably actually one of my biggest issues with just the delivery of the game in general, especially if people are just getting into it. Having that intuitive iconography for a card game, to me, is paramount. It almost needs to take slight precedent over the art, and that's a weird thing to say, but listen, you're not closely examining the artwork so much as you are wanting to quickly identify the icons on the certain buildings or the adventurers. So with that, why should you add Villages of Valeria to your collection? Well, it is easy to learn, get into, and play. And that is incredible for such a game that has really good strategy. One thing that I think you might really enjoy to add to your collection is that follow mechanic. That follow mechanic is really well done. I know that games like what am I thinking of? Tiny Epic Galaxies, for example, comes to mind that has this sort of follow mechanic. But here in Villages of Valeria, I think that it's done a little bit better. So that strategy of when to follow and when to take that is really well done, and I like that about this game. Additionally, it goes up to 5 people. Now, I have not tried it at 5 players, but even at 4, it gets a little bit, lengthy. So I think maybe 5 players might just push it over the edge of being too long. But hey, having a game that goes up to 5 players and has a solo mode, really cool. A reason why you may not want to add this to your collection, though, is, I guess the iconography is just one thing, but that aside, I honestly can't come up with a whole lot of reasons not to, because this game, as small of a box that it is, really did deliver on its depth, strategy, and fun. And for me, when you're just kind of doing set collection style games, or managing your hand, it's hard to really hit the mark, and I think this one did. Look, you could probably dig in and find some negative remarks on why you wouldn't want to add this to your collection, and maybe just another set collection isn't for you. But overall, guys, I would definitely recommend this one. It's pretty fucking good. So I guess with that, I don't have too much else to say. If you've played this one yourself, if you've got any feedback on the game, I welcome your comments down below. If you've enjoyed the content, really appreciate the support. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, until next time, thanks so much for watching.